I can't do anything about it.
All right, we are officially live. I'm so excited to have our next guest on, and I just told her this. I actually sent her a message a long time ago. Not too long, maybe 6-8 months ago. And of course, it goes to the probably the spam folder, right? The unfiltered messages that you try to get to. And then her team reached out to me a couple months ago. And so it's just meant to be that we get to finally connect, because you are one of the most favorite human beings in the direct sales profession. And I don't say that lightly. It's like the raving fans. And maybe it's because I know for you, you're all about the hair. Maybe it's the hair.
It is.
Maybe it's the personality. Maybe it's a combo of all of it, right?
Maybe it's all of it. Oh, that warms my heart. That means so much to me. Thank you for sharing that, and for your audience. I love you guys too. I miss you all. I miss you so much.
Oh, so much chaos in the world. I remember reading your book. It was probably about 18 months ago, because eventually you hear about it, and then you hear about it, and then you hear about it, and you're like, okay, fine. So I read it, and it's just such an important message when we talk about stories that stick, because we hear the cliches like facts tell, stories sell.
Right.
But cliches are cliches for a reason, because they're timeless principles. And you being a best-selling author, world-renowned speaker, and I know you've been doing a lot of online and now some offline events as well. One of the things that really impresses me most is that you actually practice what you preach. And what do I mean by this? I think this is the ultimate compliment. I feel like I know you from following your social media. And that's always my goal with the people that follow me, is when they meet me in person, sometimes they're like, Rob, I feel like I know you. I feel like you're a friend. And you do such a good job of articulating who you are. So I guess my question would be do you have a structure on social media specifically of, you're going to talk about, because I know there's like, the niches to riches, and talk about these 5 things. Do you have certain specific things you for sure talk about and things you don't, or is it in general just sharing about yourself?
That's a really great question. And I think that, I've been working with my team as we're trying to become more strategic with, I like that I can see people when they say something. That's so exciting. Be a little bit more strategic about, what kind of content I'm sharing. So, but all of it is what's happening in my life. So, it feels very natural. So sometimes it's like a day in the life posts of like what is happening right now. Sometimes it is about my family. Sometimes I do always want to make sure that I'm talking about if there's a new thing coming out. So as we were talking beforehand, Rob, my new book is coming out. So I make sure to constantly be bringing that up. But at the same time, as you said it, and I love hearing that too, to practice what I preach. So a big thing for me is to always be sharing stories, because what I teach is about storytelling. And now even more nuanced, since my new book is about the stories we tell ourselves and the impact that can have on our successes, I make sure to be telling stories about the stories that I'm telling myself. But ultimately, I think it's really important, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about social media is it gives us an opportunity to share a glimpse into our world and who we are as people. And I have fully embraced that. It's not always easy. I know that some of you probably have had, I do it, maybe struggled with how much or whatever, but I think it's my favorite thing when someone comes up to me and they start reciting back stories of something that I shared on my Instagram a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. And sometimes it's awkward because you got to catch up to them a little bit. Like when they know you that well and you're like meeting them really for the very first time. But that's when I feel like you're doing something right. Like people want to know you, and if you're willing to let them do that, it'll mean, especially in your business, it means bigger things.
Yeah, I just have all these different thoughts. I'm one of those people, those that know me, I have ADHD, which stands for dude has dreams. So I get a list of like 10 questions, and then of course all these like new random thoughts as you're talking. Just
No,
I know, like
random thoughts.
we just have a conversation. So there's a big thing inside of the direct sales profession, outside as well, but even more so inside, where we talk a lot about attraction marketing. And some of it I think is misconstrued in the sense people are like, I make a post and my inbox is flooded, right? It's like, oh my goodness, those are unicorn posts. And maybe someone's an influencer and has that. But for most, I give them the analogy that, let's say on average, 1 out of 10 people join your business. Well, if you're telling stories the right way on social media, you still have to reach out to people and be direct. But now maybe because they know you, they followed you, maybe 2 out of 10 say yes. That may not seem like a lot, but you just doubled your numbers. So with that said, and you can speak to anything about that or go on any tangent you want, because I have ADHD now, so you're good to go any direction you want.
So do I. So we're on the same team.
I love it. I love it. So with that, my question is people want to know, how much should I post about my life, right? Whether it's stories, whatever their jam is. I don't care if it's TikTok, if it's Facebook, if it's Instagram, or if it's rest in peace MySpace with Tom. I don't care what it is, right? Like if they're posting consistently wherever their focus is, how much do I talk about business and how much do I talk about my life?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different things I would say about that. Number one, I think it is possible to overthink it, right? To get too wrapped up in exactly how much or how often or whatever. And when you start to feel that way, that's when it's controlling you. You're not, like it's becoming like a boss instead of a tool. It's because, right? So I would say when you start feeling yourself getting too wound up about it, you're missing something. You're missing the point, right? Remember, the point is, yes, to be connecting with people, to be letting people know who you are, what you're about. And one of the beautiful things about, now, of course, my business is different than your business. Like, I'm not in direct selling. That's not, I mean, I'm with you guys all the time and I love you. And what I do fits perfectly with what you do. But I think that ultimately what you want people to know you, because in order for them to say yes to you, we only want to say yes to people we feel we can trust. And the way we start to trust somebody is by feeling like we know them. And so I think that, and where I was really going with that is even though my business is different than yours, we're similar in that my life overlaps with my business and my business overlaps with my life. And so any opportunity I find where I can share about my life and it still kind of illustrates my message, then I don't need to say, click here, buy here, right? Because I'm illustrating it through the stories that I'm telling. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes I overtly say, go pre-order my book. I need you to pre-order this book really badly. You love this book. I need your support.
Which, real quick, tell them where they can pre-order, even though we're not.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should share that. So the new book is called Choose Your Story, Change Your Life. But I do have a special offer for anyone in direct selling if you do pre-order it. So go to the website, chooseyourstorychangeyourlife.com/direct selling. And I think
someone put that in the comments and I'll post it. And Kindra, can you say that again slowly?
Yeah. And someone test it to make sure that is what it is. But it's choose your story, changeyourlife.com. That's the title of the book, /direct selling, all one word, I think. So double check me on that. So then what you'll do is you'll go pre-order the book, you'll enter your info, and I'm going to send you access to a course that I made just for direct selling, which is Story Your Way to Success in Direct Selling. So it tells you how to incorporate your stories. Like, it's a whole course, a whole digital course just for direct selling, $30 value. You get it for free for pre-ordering the book. But you can see right there, oh no, direct selling. Erica had it as direct sales. So do direct selling, I think.
So close, Erica. We got some crazy, phenomenal leaders. I apologize if I missed people, but we have, as far as 6+ figure earners, which is a huge feat, and many 7 in this industry. Just on this live, we got Holly for sure, Mindy, Jen, Christy, Rita, Crystal. I could probably keep going up and up. Taylor, my man, he's corporate. He hired you, helped hire you for their company. Wow, this is fun. So I think we got the right one here. Is this right?
Direct selling, that's it. Yep. Choose your story, change your life. Direct selling.
We got it.
Fill that out. But I guess the point is, if you're getting too caught up in it, you've lost the meaning of what this really is. It's for connecting with people. And so for me, I kind of feel it out. And honestly, sometimes if I'm doing too many long posts, the algorithm I use most often is Instagram. It starts to fade out, right? They stop serving it to people. So sometimes you do just need a little like happy Saturday kind of post to lighten it up. But I'm also a happy Saturday kind of person. I think the best thing you can do as you're thinking about the content you're creating and you're putting out there is give people the opportunity to get to know you, and any opportunity you get to expand the surface area of getting to know you. So you don't want them just to know you in your direct sales role, because that's only one place, the surface area where they can meet you. Maybe they need to know you as an athlete. Maybe you're an avid runner. Maybe they need to know you as the person who loves to travel when you can. Maybe you're an excellent mom or world's greatest aunt or a dog person. Share all the different aspects of who you are, because it gives more opportunity for people to have ways in to who you are as a person.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about one of my really good friends. Maybe someone can tag him, Woody Woodward. He's written like 40 books and traveled all over the world. And he's someone I meet with every single month. And he is crazy about something called Legos. And everybody knows this. And he probably spends 10 grand a month in Legos and is like nuts. We're talking, he'll stay up till 5 a.m. Well, I just learned this about Kindra. She is a huge Lego fan. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it's niches to riches. And as Kindra's talking about, as you're throwing out different aspects of you, it's a way to connect with people. Whereas if they don't really know you at all, and all you're being is the Spamela Pamela, where you're just spamming people every single second, they don't get to know you. She talked about that know, like, and trust. And the people that get annoyed by you, you can't be everything to everyone. If you try to be everything to everyone, you're going to be nothing to no one. And so, yeah, some of them are going to block you. Some of them are going to unfriend you. Some of them are going to unfollow you. And, for some of you, that's painful, but it's part of the process. And you start doubling down on who you are. Now you get to cast that wider net, as Kindra said. So with that, the big question with business related posts is people always want to know, how do I talk about my business if I'm making, posts or sharing of stories? Because I know for you're so great at making posts, and your jam is Instagram, but even more so, you're always doing constant stories. And so if you're putting yourself in the direct sales industry and you're thinking, right, and I'll give you, there's 2 really lines of thought, and I think you can make anything work. And there's some people that are posting a ton about their lives and then they do more direct about their business. And then there's some people that are posting about their lives and it's more indirect. Like, let's say I'm a supplement company and they're showing working out, and then they're showing like the supplements they're mixing. But maybe give us some ideas or examples, and you can give anything that goes with your formula for stories, because I didn't even know this was a thing. I'm reading your bio, national champion Storyteller? Why is this not televised on ESPN? Like
I mean, it really should be an Olympic sport. No, it shouldn't. That pulls down what the Olympians go through. It should not be an Olympic sport. Yep, national champion storyteller. I know. So here's what I would say, because you were, and maybe this is controversial to share. But
that's a good start for a story, by the way.
I know, right? You were talking about spam a lot, where you're just always saying, like, here's the whatever. Here's the product, buy my product, here's my business, buy the product, that's fine. But I think there's another person, and that's on the other side of it. And that is the person. And so again, this could be very controversial, but that's the person who never talks about their business, but everybody knows that they're in the business, right? So and for me, I'm like, that feels as, I don't like that as much as I don't like the other, right? So I do think that, so two things when it comes to posting about your business. Sometimes post about your business. Like, say what it is, say the name, say the product, say the, like, just post about the business, right? I think that's okay to do. And I think you should do it. Just like I said, sometimes I say, here, swipe up, pre-order the book. Here, swipe up, buy this thing, or whatever it is, okay? So I think you need to do that. If we're talking about now from a storytelling perspective, how you talk about your business, but talk about it through stories, here's like a real strategy to this, is to take a look at the things that your business has offered you, but not in terms of like a checklist of items, but think about it rather in terms of moments. Where there's a missed opportunity in direct sales is to talk in sweeping terms about your success, or about your business, or about why you love it, instead of going into one specific moment. So maybe it is a moment when, the reason I'm hesitating here is because we're in such an awkward time. Whereas before it would have been, I get to spend time at home with my family, whereas I used to be at a job, let's say, and I got to see my daughter's dance recital, which is something I never would have. And you could tell the story of watching that dance recital. And that could be the whole post, not even before at my 9 to 5, I wouldn't have been able to do this, but instead to tell the story of like watching her move across the floor, and maybe how she was a little offbeat, but was so filled with joy. And you were sitting in your chair thinking, I can't believe I get to watch this right now. And like, leave it at that, because if you don't then have to go into, it's all because of this business. You don't even have to say that, because if the post before that, you were talking about your business, it's all about this consistently and kind of consistency and rotating through. So then you get to tell a story just as a story, and they know they can infer what that really means based on the other content that you shared previously. Does that make sense? Look at how I am getting really into this right now.
I love the hand gestures.
I know.
That's like
I had to turn it off, and now I'm just sweating. So.
Oh, well, the audience is love hearing, whether you're watching this YouTube, we're watching this on a live, or you're listening to this on a podcast. You got to make sure that you go find Kindra. And I would say, especially follow her on all the platforms, but she's the most active. You can follow her on Facebook. She's the most active on Instagram. She's very, very active, especially on her stories. Like I said, I feel like I know Kindra, and she's just like, who's this dude that's interviewing me, right? Because of her social media, which is such a huge compliment. So you started getting into it, and I love how you focused on moments, because a lot of times people have these lists, as you talked about, where they're trying to, I got to cover this and this and this, and I got to go through this. So going even more in depth on what makes a story memorable, what makes a story stand out, because this is just such an important aspect because there's different variations of stories you're going to tell in the direct sales profession. You're going to learn to tell a story in your invite. Don't be robotic, right? Where it's like, hey, do you want to make a ton of money, or do you want, like, there's a story involved in that. Sometimes it's in a presentation you're going to have to learn. Sometimes it's 2 minutes. Sometimes it's 10 minutes. Sometimes you maybe have a recognition speech on stage. Maybe you're training your team. But all of these things are important. We're always telling stories. And one of the things I hope you appreciate, I know you will actually, is even when people are teaching about comp plan for their companies, I always say good leaders have vision, great leaders give vision. So good leaders are, I'm going to be here, I'm so committed. Great leaders know how to give vision. Like Stephen Covey says, his definition of leadership is communicating to one their worth and potential so well they see it in themselves. And so even if you're giving a comp plan term, like, you got to learn to tell stories and give vision so it's not boring of here's what the 72.67 ways that our comp plan pays right as we go. So what are some of the, we'll go with one of my favorite phrases, secret sauce. What are some of the secret sauce strategies to help make a story just juicy, exciting? I know we got right now, you did say moments.
Yeah.
You are also hitting on emotion without saying it, because you talked about that goes with that moment. So those are two things I've extracted so far.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned those two things, because those are two of the 4 components that I talk about in my first book, which is out right now. And I've seen so many of you comment about it in the comments. So Stories That Stick is the first book that really is the method behind like how to tell effective stories. And in that book, I do list 4 key components that a story needs to have. First is the moment, right there. That's where I encourage people to go small. Think about one moment, and maybe it's a moment from your past, and maybe you're sitting in this moment. Let me share an example with you that's coming out on my Instagram page sometime this week. That's something I've been doing now, is a story comes to me and I quick write the story down, and then I schedule it to go out at another time. So I'm excited for you to hear this one. So I was sitting outside. I was actually trying to meditate. I'm a very beginner meditator. That was the only time I've tried to have been able to meditate in a long time. So, and I was sitting there in my house, and I kept hearing this sound. And our house is up on a hill when we live out in Montauk. So we live in New York City, and then we have a house out in Montauk, which is at the end of the Hamptons. And I kept hearing this sound, this like boom, 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 and then boom, and then boom, 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 boom. And so I'm like trying to notice the sound, but don't open your eyes. And I'm like, what is this sound? And it's this girl who is like running down the hill, like kind of jogging down the hill, and then trying to sprint back up again, and then running down the hill and then sprinting back up again. And I just all of a sudden thought in that moment, like, wow, this is like, look at me. I'm sitting on, just because I happen to have a house on a hill, I get to have this woman like pushing herself to the next level, to being a better person. And I get to witness it just sitting outside my house. Like, what a beautiful thing. Now, does that story, so I wrote out the story and it'll be posted later this week. Does that story really have anything to do with my business? No. Does it necessarily have anything to do with, no, except that part of your business too is personal development and seeing these. So that's one of the components. I share that because it was a moment that happened as I was sitting there, and it was a relevant story to what my overall brand is. It's about stories. It's about being better as a human and growing. But I focused on that one moment of this woman running up and down this hill. So a moment is one. Emotions is another one of the 4 key components. And this is the one that I think lends itself most naturally to storytelling, to what you're doing. In order for a story to be engaging, we need to feel something. But where stories often go wrong, or where a misconception is that we think the emotion has to be over the top, that it has to be super dramatic, that it has to be about the greatest loss we ever had or the greatest success we've ever had, when really we're just looking to connect with other humans on the emotional levels that we can connect with other humans. And so again, much like with moments going small emotions count too. Like I would say the emotion in that story about the girl running up and down the hill was just like wonder and being like admiration, like subtle admiration. And like who hasn't felt that about someone before? Who hasn't wanted someone to feel that about them? So you don't have to have it be some big over the top emotion to have it be a relevant story. It just needs to be emotion. The third, and these are in no particular order, but the third component is identifiable characters. A story needs to have a person we can identify in the story and a person we can identify with. Now, as you are telling your stories in direct sales, you are often the person. So again, when I'm working with really big brands where they are just this huge, massive brand, it's sometimes really hard for them to come all the way down to a single person. They want to talk on a big brand level. That's definitely an advantage that you have. But the key with an identifiable character here goes all about that. I know Montauk's beautiful. It's all about that being able to connect. This is an opportunity for people to be able to connect with you. So share pieces of yourself in every story, like the kind of person that you are. And then the fourth component is specific details. And we often leave these out because they're so small, we think they're insignificant. But tapping into those really specific details give you that opportunity to, as we were talking about before, expanding the surface area. Just the other day, now I wasn't necessarily telling a story, but I posted on my stories. I'd gotten home and I heard this sound somewhere out of my backyard. I don't know where it was coming from, but it was definitely a bagpipe. And I just filmed myself in stories. And then in the, on the screen, I said, okay, my friends, fans, what song is in my mind right now? And all these people started writing back, celebrate, because there's an episode where Ross tries to play a bagpipe. But now I could have included that I could have written it as a story and included the name of the song, Celebrate. And everybody who loves Friends, and there are plenty of them, would have immediately, like, our relationship would have gone so much deeper right there. And then, of course, that deepness of relationship extends beyond. So as you're and here's the thing, these components, I mean, you've already got two of them automatically. You've got your identifiable character. Emotions are naturally a part of it. All you need now is to hone in on one moment and add a few specific details, and you've got everything you need.
I love that. It's a framework for all of us to use. I firmly believe that successful people just do the basics better, and we're always constantly overcomplicating things rather than mastering those basics and getting better and better. One of the questions that was asked from one of the top leaders is, how do you determine a length of a story? Because I know there's different types of presentations. It could even be, let's say someone's doing a Facebook Live, or I know there's times where it's just a set time, but let's say someone doesn't have a set time given, like they're going on stage. It's more of, it's up to them.
Yeah.
How can one determine, because you've seen it where, just like you said, sometimes they leave out some of the important details. And then there's probably the other people where it's my daughter, she's going to be a great storyteller. She's 10 and you ask her a question and it's like, my wife's looking over at me and she's like, like it's one of those, you think it's going to be 20 seconds and it's 10 minutes.
Yes.
So how do we determine length for telling stories?
This is such an important, excellent question. And the answer actually is deeper than, a good length is 5 minutes, never go over a minute and a half, like that is that really surface level answer. The more important thing to think about, and this is where self-awareness is, I think the best direct sellers are the ones who are self-aware, right? There is an element of self-awareness that is required. And the self-awareness that I'm going to ask you for when it comes to how long should my story be is to ask yourself, who is this story for?
Mm.
Because usually when you're asking how long should it be, it's like, what should I keep? What should I leave out? And that's good, right? You should be thinking about that. But in order to make those decisions, you need to be asking yourself, who is this story really for? Because what can happen sometimes and especially if you're sharing your own story, is even though we're supposed to be sharing it for the person who's listening to it, and probably for a specific goal or to illustrate a particular point, we end up telling it for ourselves because we want them to know all the struggle that we went through, or, oh, this part is really funny, or they really need, I really want to share this, and I know this part makes them cry, and those are all I. When you start thinking about what do they really need to know, like, who am I telling this story for? And you're like, I'm telling it for them. I'm telling it for this new person. I'm telling it for this potential superstar on my team who's struggling with self-doubt. I'm telling it for, then once you're really clear who you're telling the story for, you can start making edits that have less to do about your ego and more to do about what will move them to where they need to go. Another question to ask is, what do I want them to think, feel, know, or do as a result of hearing this
Think,
story?
know, feel, do.
Think, feel, know, or do.
Got it.
And then that can also help guide, okay, does this part of the story support that feeling or, that objective? And sometimes it's really hard, but sometimes the good parts that you would really love to share have to hit the cutting room floor, because they're more for you than they are for them. They don't have to understand everything about your struggle. That's where stories end up being too long, in order to get the call to whatever it is you are asking them to make.
That makes complete sense. And I love how you broke it down, because for all of us, we want systems, right? And you broke it down and gave several different steps where, look, you're not going to be perfect right away. I look back, and even sometimes, even still, I'm like, oh, I screwed up that, but that's okay. That's part of the process. I look back at Facebook Lives that I thought were good 5 years ago that got a good amount of views. What was I thinking?
I mean, let's hope we all get better. Like, I hope this is the worst one I do from here forward, because I want to keep getting better, right? So yeah, be good to yourself. Be easy, not easy, but be kind to yourself. And I mean, that of course is a story you can tell yourself. You can tell yourself how bad, this goes to the new book, that, oh, it was so bad. What was I thinking? Or, whoa, I have gotten so much better. Look at how much more I know. Look at how much easier the conversations happen. I mean, you get to choose. Both of them are true, I suppose. Why not choose to tell yourself the good one?
Yeah, I'm going to say this real quickly. For any of you, which is all of you that are tuning in, part of the direct sales profession, you need to message your leaders who have, that sway with the corporate team, and you need to say, we need Kindra to speak for our company, right? We need Kindra to speak for our company, and do that. And if that's the case, do they just go on your website, and from there there's booking?
Yep. You can go to kindrahall.com, and that is where there's a form to fill out, and my team will be so excited. We know all of you, and we can't, anytime we're like, yeah, okay, it's a direct selling company. We're so excited. So
that'll be a ton of fun. Last question. I think this is even deeper, and you're going to love this, is we talk a lot about stories, but then of course there's the internal storytelling that is so crucial and so important. And we get in our own heads, and we got so many fears. And I talk about the mother of all fears, I believe, is the fear of judgment. You remove humans, and we don't have the fear of success, fear of failure, fear of missing out. We don't have the fear of the unknown with, the typical things. And so of course, it's a huge one we have. So talk to us a little bit about the inner storytelling and how that can help those that are in the direct sales profession to have more success with potential customers and just conquering their fears in general.
Yeah, I think this again is like, I mean, using stories, using outward stories for your business is such an important part of the success strategy, right? Like that is really important, outward storytelling. But all of you who are listening know that the true challenge in this business is the inner turmoil, the up and down, the roller coaster that we go on. And so often we're the ones doing it to ourselves. And so from the very basics, we have internally a tape player of stories going at all times, the stories about ourselves, and they're true stories, they're real stories for the most part. Now, sometimes there's a whole method to figuring out if they were true or not. We can save that for another time, but these are the stories that are on repeat, and they are subconscious. We don't even know that they're there. They are invisible to us. We don't see them. They're habitual, they're automatic. And so these things just go on repeat, and we live our lives not knowing that our lives are shaped by these stories that we're telling ourselves. And a key factor to your success, and I've had the huge honor of interviewing some of the greats in their industries on my podcast, and I can tell with every single one of them what made them great. Part of this process is at one point they decided to take control of the stories they told themselves. They decided to pause the automation, these invisible automatic stories that are oftentimes negative and like trying to keep us safe, right? It's that the caveman within all of us, because yeah, it's judgment. Well, don't do that because people might judge you. And then now back in the caveman days, that meant that you would be kicked out of the tribe and you would die, right? Like that's what was at stake when it was judgment or stepping outside or doing something different or taking a chance. You would die. Those risks aren't the same here anymore, particularly not in direct sales. And so pausing that automation and then actively choosing better stories to tell yourself, because we all have them. Yes, of course, we all have stories of failures, of when things didn't go the way we wanted. We have stories of rejection. We have stories that do scare us, right? But then you also have the stories of when things did go well. And I actually took a group of people through this process, and it's what I outline in the new book. It'll come with additional pre-order bonuses aside from the course that I sent you, but I took them through like a 4-step process for self-storytelling. And several of the people were in direct sales, and they all had different challenges with it, but it all came down to limiting beliefs. And it was so interesting because one of the women, I remember, she had seen initial success, her team was growing, she was so excited. And then something kind of started to shift, and she started to go on the awards calls and be kind of like jealous that other people were doing well, and she wasn't doing as well. And then it started to cut her back, right? And she started focusing on all of these stories of what someone else was doing, what she wasn't doing, why this promotion went wrong, what's happening over here. And all of a sudden these stories just started taking over, and her business imploded. And she was trying to figure out why, what happened. And she came into this group, and what we found were some of these exact stories she'd been telling herself. And more importantly, that we replaced them with other stories, like the time that she went, and these are these small moments, that she went to the grocery store, and by the time she got out into the parking lot, she realized she hadn't taken out her calculator. She used to have to use the calculator to add everything up to make sure she had the right amount and not $1 over. And just the freedom of not having to be a slave to her calculator in the grocery store, and realizing, wait, I did that. There were these other business successes and life successes. And what she did was then started putting I'm like getting goosebumps right now. I'm gonna have to go shave my legs again. That's probably too much information, but she started putting those stories on repeat instead of the other ones, like intentionally. And by the end of our time together, her business was on the way back up again, all because of the stories she was choosing intentionally. There's a choice there of what story you have to tell yourself. So I guess clearly I feel very passionate about this. I'm so excited about what's ahead. I'll be able to share more of this with you. But two things I want you to take away from this. Number one, know that this is happening for you. And it's happening in all areas of our life. It's not just business. It could be health. It could be finances. It could be your family. I talk about each one of those separately in the book. And it can pop up on you in a moment. Like one day I was working through some of the edits on my book, and it was just taking me so long, and I was so stressed out about it, and I was giving myself a hard time about being stressed out about it. So I was then stressing myself out about being stressed, all because of the stories I was telling myself, like, this should be easier. Why are you struggling so much? You should be better. And I decided to pause, turn it around, and say, hey, I'm a real author. Real authors care about the words that they write. Like, Kindra, yes, this is stressful, but it's only stressful because you achieved your dreams, right? So this is happening to you. It'll pop up. So be aware of it now. Number two, especially if you are a leader, and I know we have a lot of high-level leaders, add this into your leadership strategy. As you're looking at people on your team who you know that they should be great, and you see that they're struggling with something, instead of just calling it self-doubt or whatever you want to call it, you can start asking yourself, I wonder what stories they're telling themselves. If you can help move them, oh gosh, I just had a big idea. That could be a whole course to have leaders. Like, how do you help move people through the stories? I need to write that down. Okay, well, I'll figure that out.
That's how I am. I have ideas all the time. That's why
I know. I'm like, oh
right
shoot,
here.
my pen is over there. But if you can start as a leader, see this as part of your job now to help people move through the stories they're telling themselves, your team will be so much better as a result, because you'll be able to move each one of them onto bigger and better stories. That was a long answer.
Hey, you just came up with a brand new course on it, because the top things in this profession that I get asked are things pertaining to sponsoring, and then duplication, which is what you're talking about.
Retention.
Leaders to be able to get more activity and more results is we're helping them. And if we can do those two things, everything else is, personal development helps us do those things, right? Stories helps us do those things. Social media helps us do those things. And so, that you'll have to let us know when you decide to launch that, because that would be a ton of fun. But that's just people here are absolutely loving it. I love the content here. So we're gonna finish with this question. What's one of the most favorite recent books? It could be one book or books that you've read. It could be the last month. It could be the last year, 2 years. What's a book that stands out?
I was really late to the party on this book. It's 20 years old, but it is called Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it is the book that the quote, our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. So if you love that quote, you might love this book. I don't know. It's out there. It's very metaphysical. But I just ate it up, and it was a really powerful book for me.
Good. Well, I love that. And if you're hiding under a rock and have never been on social media and you aren't following Kindra, now hopefully you are following her. Go follow her on Facebook and Instagram. And we just all want to say thank you so much for your time. I know you're crazy busy. And when does the new book come out?
It comes out January 11th, 2022, but we'll be launching a mini course for pre-orders. That'll be coming out soon. We're doing a 12-week live training for pre-orders. All of that is free when you pre-order the book. So January, though.
Sounds like a no-brainer to pre-order. Well, thank you so much, Kindra. It's great to get to know you a little bit better, and so much value and content. I know many will be sharing this with their teams, and they'll come back to listen or watch or re-listen or re-watch, and we'll have to do this again.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me into this very special space. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
We'll see everybody until the next time.